Hello there, Steve here in Sydney of the Gnosis website, truebluehealer.com. Last video, a couple of videos ago, I told you about someone called Dr. Steve Turley, who's always very good at supplying 2 videos a day of positive news that the MSM never want you to hear. And he's particularly good at race calling the return to conventional normalcy and common sense all over the world in terms of electoral polls and things. So there's some science to it and there's some accuracy, and there's a right-wing swing back toward common sense all over the world. So globalism is definitely on the run. Now, another person, this is some good news, another person I'm going to recommend to you that you subscribe to is someone called Amazing Polly. Now, she would appear to be a Gnostic, whether she is aware of it or not. She talks about how she gets ideas, she sees things, and then they get organised for her in the middle of the night. And phrases are suggested to her to encapsulate what's happening in the turbulent times today. Phrases are put to her by another intelligence, and they are very useful at quick understanding for thousands of people, and that becomes her video for the day. I've done all that stuff myself, so I know what she is doing. Now, let me tell you what Amazing Polly talks about. She's talked about stuff you'll never find in the MSM, and that is that the yellow-jacketed rebellion in France, Paris actually, was probably started by the corporatocracy, the international corporations, because they actually want to get rid of Macron. Macron made a big mistake at a globalist conference. He actually, in his speech, he went off script, can you believe it? And I've got a link for the article below, I'll find it for you, leave it for you there. And basically, there's a lot of argument, a lot of dispute between, all right, big corporations say they need French taxpayer money to go to third world countries to even up the carbon distribution to save the world, etc. And of course the corporations are going to just chip in hundreds of billions of dollars. It's been disputed because what the corporations say is not audited or verified. There are no receipts presented, bank deposit slips or anything like that. So in response to this, Macron said to these globalist corporate heads, he said, for all we know, everything you tell us could be bullshit. He said it to their faces. That was the end of Macron. Now, going down through the very thick, dense French bureaucracy is thought to have been the organisation of the first Yellow Vest protest, which is now sort of snowballed, burgeoned into affecting many cities in France. Tax offices have been burnt down. They're getting the idea, aren't they? It's also spreading internationally, and there's some useful ramifications to that. One of them being that it could save Canada. I'm going to connect Canada and France now. What she says is, she reads out a letter written by, wait for it, 12 French generals to Macron. He's about 4 days away from signing the United Nations Pact on Migration, which means the United Nations can just tip 500 million Africans into France. 12 French generals wrote to Macron and said, if you sign that, that is treason, Mr. President, with the obvious in brackets connotation of death. Now, guess what? It's already been done. Now, by Trudeau. He photographed himself giving away migration powers of the Canadian government to a foreign entity, namely George Soros. Photographed himself proudly committing treason. So the French generals threat that if you sign this compact with the UN, opening France up to massive dumping of migrants into France, then you're committing treason, Mr. President Macron. So now that could become the standard sovereign nation response to any leader of any sovereign nation thinking of signing the compact on migration from the UN. Usefully, Amazing Polly encapsulates what the UN are really doing, trying to make migration into a human right. And she says what they're actually doing is, as soon as a citizen becomes mobile, they can sort of register, I'm a migrant, and you automatically become a citizen of the United Nations with a long list of rights and obligations and privileges wherever you go in any sovereign nation. And so they're basically an invasion army destroying every Western country. So the United Nations is an attack on sovereign nations, like it was always said by survivalists and all those conspiracy extremists years ago. They were right all along. So by the same token, I'm thinking Canada has taken up on the Yellow Vest protest, and they've just seen Trudeau commit treason in front of a camera. So there's good reason to charge him with treason, or not bother with charging him at all and just carry out the sentence. That's highly likely to happen. So Canada could still be rescued by the action of 12 generals in France, setting a standard reaction, a standard response from sovereign nations to the UN Compact on Migration. So I urge you to subscribe to this amazing Polly lady. I'll give you a link to her channel, and she's worth listening to every day. And she's got leading edge ideas for you all the time, stuff that you will never see on the MSM. Now here I've got some more good news for you in what seems to be, it's touted as, a world first in Australia. The ACCC, which is some kind of regulatory watchdog to make sure that corporations or businesses don't get monopolistic dominance, they've just put out a 378-page report severely critical of the tech giants, and basically foreshadowing they're going to be regulated in Australia. If they want to trade in Australia, they're going to have to be regulated. This is going to include outside external committees for deciding algorithms and that sort of stuff. They should be made to pay local taxes and that sort of stuff. They've always been into tax evasion by claiming to be an entity in the Cayman Islands or something. But the main reason they're doing this, the complaints will come from newspapers, by the way, because lots of news channels on the internet, TV channels and all that, end up somehow on Google. Google may get some benefit out of it, but they're actually stealing the content from TV stations, etc. So the newspaper's complaint is that maybe Google and Facebook should be made to live in the real world instead of their own little Peter Pan cowboy world where they want to live. But there's a long list of complaints. I'll see if I can get it on my phone for you. Here I've got a quick summary, which is quite good and quite bad for the future of Google and Facebook. It says here, ACCC findings are summarised, and it says, Google and Facebook were found to be harvesting huge amounts of personal information from users without their knowledge. Both used algorithms to rank display ads and news content to favour related businesses or businesses with which they have existing commercial relationships. And ACCC is all about stopping insider trading and in-bed agreements between companies, like price fixing and that sort of stuff. ACCC wants changes to the Privacy Act to give consumers more control over the collection of their personal information. And ACCC also want to subject Google, Facebook and others to external audits and to introduce penalties for repeated breaches of at least $10 million. Okay, so you might be able to make a complaint about Google, about Facebook, and they'll be fined $10 million. That could make them rethink their egregious behaviours. Okay, I'll put this whole page up for you. A link below the video. Okay, it's quite good to read. 378-page report. Now the good news is, while we're all waiting for Donald Trump to do something about the tech giants, which he's not really, because he's only looking at antitrust legislation, which means breaking up Google and Facebook into 20 different companies, but then the same insane management turn up in every company so nothing changes. They tried that with Standard Oil and Rockefeller, and it didn't work. He just made more money in 20 different companies instead of one company. But today we're smarter and we need external regulation. And I'd say the biggest thing they haven't mentioned here in the little summary is that Google and Facebook are a threat to every government facing an election, because they're a third party in every election, you know. And they can tilt the table either way, which it's really the end of democracy. It's the end of the electoral system as we know it, which is imperfect, but it's better than Google deciding what government you're going to have, better than Facebook determining what government you're going to have. So they tend to have very globalist outlook, and this is another strike against globalism, big time. Now the good news is it's 378 pages long, it's quite detailed, and if it works, if it's put into place, it's likely to be copied around the Western world. My personal sixpence worth would be that if they're going to do digital human trafficking, stealing all my personal details, they should be paying me for it, because everybody else in the chain gets paid, don't they? It's rather like I bought a pressure cooker online the other day, and ever since then I've been bombarded with screens full of pressure cooker ads, you see. So Google's making money providing all my personal details to advertisers. Now, I'm the only one not getting paid. Now, there's something wrong with that. When I'm the originator of the action, I'm the social media star who made the move to buy the pressure cooker. So I should be given something, the proceeds of all the money generated from me being the social media mini celebrity by purchasing something online. And the same goes for everybody joining up for YouTube, any free service like Facebook. You should be paid for the stealing of your personal details. There's other articles in the same newspaper complaining about the single-click, take it or leave it, totally ambiguous agreements that you have to sign up when you get into Google and Facebook. And they could be set aside to ensure that you get paid when your personal details are used. I mean, you could surrender and say, okay, you can use my personal details, but I've got to get 10–20% of the action, so that everyone gets some reward from the use of their personal data, which they generate themselves. Just like a singer or a composer generating a piece of music, once it gets into movies, once it gets into other media, the originator of the music gets royalties, right? Why shouldn't you get royalties on your personal behaviours, which are prized by Google and Facebook and advertisers? They're a commodity bought and sold, but the only person who doesn't make money is you, the content originator. So that's my little rant for today, and I think it's all good news that the ACCC is going after the tech giants in Australia, and I think the government's going to endorse it too, because no government is going to be safe with Facebook and Google against them in years to come. So they've got to be curtailed, and I think regulated like a phone company. $10 million fines, I love the sound of that. I really do love the sound. And external committees doing auditing on algorithms and that sort of thing. I'm very hopeful for this, that it might take off on a global scale before even Donald Trump does it. So I'll see you next time, and don't forget, do subscribe. Amazing Polly, that's what it is. Amazing Polly, do subscribe to her for up-to-the-minute breaking news about the battle between the corporatist New World Order, the One World Government, the borderless government, and sovereign state common sense. Okay? So I'll leave you now. Steve here in Sydney.